Good evening, guys. It's been many months since my last video, and I will be doing more when I've got a little bit more time. I'd been concentrating on getting through my Institute of Advanced Motorists exam, which I did back in, I don't know, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, back in November, and I'm now training with the Rospa guys down in Northampton. I'd like to get that qualification as well, and I've also signed up to serve, which is the local group who deliver the out of hours blood and things like that. I'm just doing the training for that at the moment. But anyway, so yesterday, whilst we were out training, I think we'd gone through. Oh yeah, actually, you won't have seen any of the changes. I really have added some bits and pieces to make this highly highly visible. So yeah, we've added some fluorescent tape to the screen and either side of the underbelly plastic, and also at the back here on the panniers and on the seat. And no, these aerials are not to make it look like a police bike, although they seem to do the job. I actually have a Netgear AC810 that is in this pannier, and that's with 3, and the phone is with O2, so pretty much wherever I go I've got a high-speed broadband connection available to me. So anyway, getting back to the point of this video, yesterday whilst we were out training, the observer said to me, your brake light has been on all the time, all the way through, where were we? I think Market Harborough. I said, well, absolutely no idea why that would be. I may have been resting my fingers on the front brake just in case I needed to stop really quickly, but I'm fully aware of when I might be operating the switch. You can hear the micro switch operate. Yeah, hopefully. So anyway, I gave the bike a good clean today, and whilst I was going through the checks, you know, all the things, just checking the lights and everything was okay, I turned the bike on, realised that the brake lights were on permanently, and yeah, assumed possibly that if anything was going to fail, it would be the switch for the rear brake, because it's probably more exposed than any you know, other bit of wiring. The actual, let me get one of these LED lights on here, see if we can light this up a bit. Yeah, so you can see when you press the brake, there's a little plunger coming out just in there. It's just in that bit of shadow in there, and the wiring goes off up the back, and it wasn't entirely obvious where it was running to. So unfortunately, because I was pretty convinced that was the one causing the problem, I decided I was going to have to take this side off. So there's a hex key, hex bolt here, here, and here. You unscrew those. If you loosen the exhaust clamp here, when you lift that off, you then pull the whole rear of the exhaust off, and that allowed me to follow the wiring and understand where it was going to. And where it goes to is, so I'm trying to, yeah, this is going to be really awkward to show you. Okay, just in there are a number of plugs and sockets, and I don't know whether you can see or not. It's really hard to get it. You can see 2 yellow wires, hopefully. That is the plug and socket assembly for this rear brake light switch. Now the gap here is tiny, I'm lucky, I've got a really small hand. I was able to get in there, grab the wires and literally yank the plug and socket out of the little rubber. That bottom plug you can see is held in place by a sort of rubber assembly, and there's one just above it also held in place, and the one that I've pulled out was held in place in the same rubber block. It isn't now, and there's a little catch you probably can't see, or yeah, maybe you can. Just at the top of that plug you can see a little catch. You need to push that up and pull the wires out. You're going to need a really small hand to get that out, or you're going to have to dismantle a lot of the bike. I think it's a few hours work according to the Ducati workshop manuals. Getting it back together is an utter nightmare, so unless you've got small hands, just don't bother. Anyway, disconnecting that made no difference whatsoever. So at that point I decided to investigate the front of the bike, and whilst I could hear the micro switch working, there was no guarantee that it wasn't actually shorted or locked on. So again, followed the cabling. It's literally run through here. There's some little rubber cable straps that hold it in place, and it runs down here in front of the suspension and round, and then follows along here and eventually goes into this tube here. Now this plug and socket is deep within this tube. You can't feel the plug and socket. You've got to literally pull it out. Anyway, so I pulled that out, disconnected it, and suddenly the side lights were on and the brakes were no longer on. And after I'd got the back brake plug and socket back together again, the brake lights were working perfectly on the rear brake. So as I pulled this out, I dropped it accidentally, and when I did that, water came pouring out the end, this won't focus, of this sleeve that these two wires are sat in. Now if you look, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see which way can we go to film this. Hang on a sec. Okay, don't know whether you'll be able to see. Yeah, you probably can. The two wires that go into this micro switch, I just sat there, and there was about a 1/4 inch gap before the tube started. Now the tube is all pushed up at the moment, so to enable me to show you this issue as well. But there's about a 1/4 inch gap between the two wires going into the micro switch and this sleeve. And of course, as soon as it rains, or you're washing the bike or anything, this tube gets water in it. Hopefully you can see. Yeah, you get the idea. That's further down. Anyway, this tube literally fills with water, and because it goes down and back up, it's just full of water, and that's what poured out when I dropped the cable. But as I was squeezing the tubes to get the water out, so I'm going to put the phone down for a second. Sorry guys. Just want to get this prepared so you can see what's going on. There we go. Right, as I was squeezing the water out of this tube, I felt a lump in the wiring, and I've pulled the sleeve back up, and believe it or not, there are two connections. This will focus. There you go. Two just crimped on connections where they've had to lengthen wires to this little socket. The socket is not of a waterproof design, unlike some of the others on the bike. The rear brake one is a waterproof connection. There's a silicone or neoprene sort of fluted gasket that goes inside the joint when you make it. So not only have they bodged the join in here, hopefully you can see the corrosion on that brown wire. So probably from the first time this ever got wet, whether it was in the rain or being washed, that started to corrode. The other one is, I don't think I can turn it around. Yeah, the other one is not quite so bad, but obviously that has been getting corroded for quite some time. The only thing that was covering that was the this sort of rubberized heat shrink, and again inside there you can see the corrosion inside that heat shrink tubing. The other one, not so bad. I've just stripped them off. A flipping 10-year-old could have wired it better than that. This is a Ducati. This is a premium brand and very expensive. To see this level of bodge is shocking, and the fact that this tube can fill up with water is just ridiculous. So what did they think was going to happen? Exposed front brake and a tube just sat there waiting to collect the rain. Just stupid. So yeah, the two wires here, the water had just got into it and was playing havoc with the resistance, and it was just enough to trigger the brake lights. So yeah, really stupid design. I'm going to now have to put some silicone in here to seal that. I'm going to have to cut and solder these with some new heat shrink, and again I'll probably use silicone around it. Same at the ends of these tubes. In fact, if I'm going to do anything, I'll probably make a slit in the lowest part of the loop, and just so anything in there can drain away. And then at the top here, again I'm going to have to pull this back down and inject some silicone in the top and try and make that as waterproof as possible. It's just a rubbish, absolute rubbish design. So to achieve this, we have a soldering iron, some solder, various pieces of heat shrink. We've got some silicone, very high temperature silicone. Doesn't really matter, I use that in the workshop, so that's why we're using that. A little bit of very thin heat shrink. I'm not going to drag out the hot air gun, I'm just going to touch it with the soldering iron and shrink it. So yeah, total bodge, not happy, shouldn't be doing any of this, but what do? I get it recovered to Ducati in Cambridge. I'd have to go over there with it, bring a loan bike back. By the time you've faffed around, you've probably wasted the best part of a day taking it over there and picking it up. So not going to bother, I'm just going to do it myself, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve something a damn sight better than that. Ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't bode well for the rest of the bike if you've got connections like that. And a lot of this wiring is very, very well tucked away. It is going to be a real pain if you've got an issue like that deep under the tank. Or anyway, so I will update you later on. But if you've got a Ducati Diavel and the brake lights are suddenly stuck on, this is why. Catch you later.